precondition for Kashmir talks?
I think we're getting this wrong. First of all, Pakistan has to do something for its own good. And if it does that, it would enable a normal neighborly relationship with India. The issue between India and Pakistan, it's not like we agree on everything else and we have a wonderful relationship and there's a Kashmir issue. We had an attack on Mumbai city. The last time I checked, Mumbai city was not part of Kashmir. So if Pakistani terrorists can attack states and regions which are far removed from Kashmir, we got to recognize there's a bigger problem out there. So what's the problem? The problem is really a mindset. Look, what we have today, every time there's a change of government in Pakistan, somebody says, look, first of all, it's new and nothing to do with the earlier guys, it's all their fault. Second position, by the way, it's nothing to do with us as a country, it's all the Americans. The Americans taught us the bad habits by doing the Afghan jihad. We were good people till you came along. By the way, I know you're not an American.
That's true.
So the point is, there is a fundamental issue there which they need to understand. And we need to encourage them to do. And that is to move away from terrorism. And it's not, at one level, it's a huge issue. At one level, it's a very obvious issue. These are not activities which are subterranean. These are activities in broad daylight. So they know where the camps are. Anybody knows where the camps are. Just Google them, you'll find them.
Which leads to another question from the audience, which is, what's the first question we at the Asia Society should ask Imran Khan when he comes here to speak on Friday?
You don't need the answer to that.
I just thought I'd try. And here's an interesting one. Someone in the audience has a genuine sense of humour. Donald Trump has offered to mediate and help on Kashmir. Will you be taking up his offer? I'll move on to any other questions from the audience. The one point I was going to raise, there was a question here. I'll take this one from this gentleman. Mike's coming to you, sir.
Yes, my name is Farooq Siddiqui, and I'm from Kashmir. The foreign minister spoke about the instrument of accession, that the Maharaja, when acceded to India, it was on the basis of three conditions. One was the foreign policy, the other was the defense, and the third was the communication. That time, there was no constitution of India. So the Constitution of India came into being in 1950, right?
26 November.
Yeah, 49.
That's when it was finalized.
So Article 37, 370 and Article 35A, which is two separate things. 370 article was provided in the Constitution of India to honor the instrument of accession, which Indian government took to the United Nations as a proof that Kashmir has acceded to India on the basis of those instruments of accession.
You need to move to your question, sir.
Yes, my question is that how is it possible that India can remove this particular condition of 370 and 35A because it reflects the instrument of accession?
I get it.
Let me complete the question.
No, I think we got the question, sir, and I think we'll move to the answer.
The question is that once Article 370 is removed, that means India's relationship with Kashmir is over. And what is there is 800,000 army.
I think we've got the question, sir, and I think I'm going to take the microphone from you.
Good. Okay.
I'm actually chairing the meeting, not you. Thank you.
So let me give a short, clear answer to the questions there. I think there are two misconceptions. Number one, a misconception that the instrument of accession which was signed by the ruler of the state of Jammu and Kashmir was different from those of the others. In fact, you can again, this is public information, I have it on my phone. If you look at the instrument of accession, and remember the British bureaucracy at that time was very strong and had impacted all of us. Everybody, all the princely states got exactly the same document to sign. This document was typed up. It had a blank for the name of the ruler, a blank for the name of the state, a blank for the date, and a blank because Lord Mountbatten of Burma wanted to sign his full name in a fountain pen by himself.
Otherwise, 520 times.
Otherwise, every one of these instruments of accession were exactly the same. All of them began by saying that we are now acceding and handing over powers related to foreign affairs, defense, and communications to the Union of India. Now, the constitution making process which happened thereafter, from 1947 till 49, involved them, all the princely states, now aligning with the constitution in the making. Now, as I explained, in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, the sentiment in the Constituent Assembly with Kashmiri participation was that they needed more time to do that alignment, which is why you had, as I said, a provision with the word temporary written on it, on the title of it and on the text of the article. Now, the gentleman raised the issue that, 370, when it was a temporary article, that's your relationship with the state of Kashmir. Actually, it's not. There is an article in the Constitution, Article 1, which actually lists out all the constituent parts of India. So the relationship is not based on article. It cannot be based on a temporary article. It obviously has to be based on a permanent article. So I think there are two factual inaccuracies or misunderstandings of the Constitution of India. Take my word for it. I've read it many times. I'm a student of political science as well. So I would respectfully urge you to go back and look at the Constitution of India.
Let me just flick beyond Kashmir to Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. What do you see as being the optimal landing place for the negotiations between the Taliban and the Americans, but more broadly for the long-term stabilization of the country? And where does Indian policy fit?
Look, I think this is today one of the big vexing questions in our part of the world. And I must tell you on this trip, it is an issue which I would be talking to a number of people. Yesterday I met Ambassador Khalid Saad. I also had a meeting with the Iranian Foreign Minister Javed Zarif. And I'm going from here on to Washington, so I expect to discuss it with Secretary Pompeo as well. And with many others who are here. I met many of the Central Asians yesterday, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. And everybody really has a common set of concerns, anxieties, interests on this issue. At one level, we understand the compulsions on the United States. 18 years is a long time to be fighting a war. And actually, frankly, I take my hats off to the United States that it had the durability and the persistence and the commitment and the fortitude to do that for so long. So it's apparent that this is going to change. Okay. The question which we need to answer is how much changes, in what way, what are the consequences of those changes. Now, some of that is what has been negotiated between the American negotiators and the Taliban, and whatever is happening with the government the Afghan government, the elected Afghan government in Kabul. We know different countries have also been involved, some of them in this process. Our point of view is this: recognizing the compulsions of this change. We do think that many of the achievements of the last 18 years, and for which so many countries have fought, shed blood, spent money, those achievements should not be lost in the process. So whatever the outcomes, whatever the likely direction in which Afghanistan is going, it must be such that these are not jeopardized by what could be agreed upon. We ourselves, we've had a very strong history of development assistance there. In terms of delivery of projects, we've been really among the better deliverers. Whether you look at bringing electricity to Kabul city, or building a dam in Herat province, or doing health clinics, radio stations, schools, building a road through western Afghanistan. We've done a lot of that. But obviously now we'll have to see with the larger direction which is going. But our preference, obviously, our interests are that the gains of the last 18 years should not be jeopardized.
A country which Prime Minister Modi has placed particular attention on, and one which you have obvious connections with and interest in, I presume Japanese is one of your 7 languages, is of course Tokyo. And Abe-san and Modi-san have what appears to the rest of us to be a strong working relationship. If you were to try for this audience to explain where do you see the strategic significance of your relationship with Japan heading over the next 5 years, give us some sense of the texture of that.
Well, first of all, I must tell you that reports of my linguistic skills are vastly exaggerated, as much as rumors of my tact and diplomatic abilities. So having got that disclaimer out of the way,
do you speak Australian as well as English?
I'm working on that. I'm taking lessons. I watch cricket to understand Australia.
It was good winning the Ashes, but I won't dwell on that. At least they deserved it.
You notice I'm not contradicting you.
No, that's right. We have our own shared colonial past in a strange way. So.
But coming to Japan, look, I do think it's really a very, at the moment, a very under analyzed, or shall I say, a relationship that hasn't got the prominence that it should. Maybe it's all for the good, because it's still a stage where this relationship is growing. We see, Asia is changing, the world is changing, Asia is changing. And probably these changes would be better if we saw, in many ways, a greater Japanese participation in international affairs. Because if our declared objective is a multipolar world, to my mind, its prerequisite is a multipolar Asia. And if you're talking of a multipolar Asia, obviously one of the natural poles, one of them, is Japan. Now, how much the Japanese do and what they do and how they do, these are for them to decide. But we have seen much greater interest on their part in participating in security-related conversations, political conversations. We work with them in the Quad. We actually have a trilateral with Japan and America, which completely coincidentally is called J. We work with them on the reform of the UN Security Council. We have a G4, we'll be meeting this week at the foreign ministers level. So, but the Japanese also have been much more active in investing in India, in collaborating with us on connectivity initiatives, in looking at a range of global issues. So, I was in Japan 20 years ago. Okay, they were much more reticent about their own potential. And their,
it's been a big change in Tokyo.
And I think those changes are good. It's not for me to say whether they're good for Japan. I think they are, but that's for them to decide. But they're certainly good for India.
Let me sort of try to begin to draw this conversation to a close, because I know you've got to go off and see the Donald, and that'll be a fun meeting. But India and the future of global trade. Rightly or wrongly, India has been criticised in the past for being excessively protectionist, for not being a, shall we say, full and open participant in global trade negotiations, the particular role which India played in the destiny of the Doha round. But let's not revisit history. Looking to the future and the opening of markets within the wider Indo-Pacific region, give me your sense of where RCEP goes, give me your sense of where broader Indian policy on trade goes, and let me challenge you on the question of Indian accession to APEC, and where you would like to see your country go on that one.
Well, look, my understanding of the RCEP negotiations, the ministers met earlier this month in Bangkok. I think it's very advanced. The key point that we make is that, one which I make as a foreign minister, is that RCEP is a trade agreement, and its merits and demerits must be weighed on the scale of trade. It has political, strategic implications and connotations, but they cannot be the principal criteria of evaluating a trade agreement. A trade agreement must stand on its own feet. There must be good trade offers out there to justify that agreement. Now, what are the big concerns? A big concern, of course, is we have free trade agreements with many of the current RCEP participant countries. So the new ones are the important ones, because we don't have agreements with them at all. One is China, one is Australia, one is New Zealand. They each have their own particular complications and wrinkles. We have a big trade deficit with China, which everybody knows, which is a source of concern for Indian business. So how well are these challenges addressed? How well are challenges of, and there are creative solutions. I don't think this is beyond the realm of imagination. I think trade negotiators can find fixes in terms of coverage and time, and there are answers there. There are another set of issues. My understanding again is these relate to services, which is really they've got to be good services offers on the table, because it's something which is important for India. So I think the call would be, look, if those gaps are closed in the near future, then the chances are high that we would have an RCEP. Now, in terms of what you said about the APEC, India has been steadily pulled eastwards. Okay, it began in 1992 with what was called the Look East. For the Look East, we really looked at Southeast Asia in many ways as a sort of a model, as a lesson, and as a justification for changes which we were trying to do, and inspiration for those changes. Now, in the 25 years that have passed, Look East became Act East because the connectivities got built up, the conversations expanded, the relationships expanded. So today we have security relations with all these countries, which we didn't have before with the ASEAN 10. We have many more flights, we have a lot of investment, a lot of Indian companies operating out there. Now, the next stage was to go beyond to Indo-Pacific. And Indo-Pacific, because beyond the ASEAN, we actually found that today our principal trade partners are actually China, Japan, Korea, and to a large extent Australia. So we've actually, if you look, for us, the center of gravity in terms of our economic interests and consequently of our strategic interests has steadily shifted eastwards. So, and given the other developments which have happened, the repositioning of America, the rise of China, a lot of the artificial silos between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean have also become irrelevant. So you have the Indo-Pacific. So for me, if you actually do the RCEP agreement and you have and that becomes your economic trade framework. You have the Indo-Pacific as your strategic approach in a way. Then obviously that brings you that much closer towards APEC. I mean, APEC has its own process challenges, but to me the case for APEC would grow with this.
Yeah, I mean, my argument about APEC is simply another day to have the Foreign Minister of India with us to spend some time. I'd like you to express your appreciation in the conventional fashion.
Thank you.